I'm not promising what I'm about to tell you will help you get out of a deep, dark depression, but it is something that pulled me out of a 3-year depression. It's basically 25 books, 3 years of intensive and expensive therapy, and life experience wrapped into just a few minutes. And I'll tell you how to do that by the end of this video. I'm not saying it'll work for you, but it worked for me, so I hope it serves you. You know, a lot of people don't understand what it's like to be depressed, to be just ultimately feeling horrible every single day. And what's worse is that when you feel horrible and you have a lot, whether that is money, success, whether that is the love of your parents while they hate your brother, it could be anything. Anytime you have more than someone else, I've noticed that human beings tend to give less compassion, less understanding for when we fall. People like to make fun of and get judgmental about guys like Tiger Woods. And I remember hearing this this comedian, one of my favorite comedians, and I haven't had all my coffee yet, so I can't remember his name. But he made this joke about how men like to criticize Tiger Woods for cheating on his wife, but all of those men never had a busload of hot groupies just lined up waiting to take him to bed. And so they don't know that level of temptation. And to a certain degree, that's true, and here's why. You know, when I was poor and broke living in the Chicagoland area, I was literally huddled around 4 space heaters to keep warm because it was negative 16 degrees outside. The furnace had broke. My slumlord was not willing to fix it or do anything because it was right before Christmas, and I would have to wait till after Christmas. So here I am with my girlfriend at the time. We're huddled up, 4 cheap space heaters because that's all the money we could have. We had to reset the breaker every hour to keep them on because they would trip the breaker because we had no heat. And this went all the way through the weekend, all the way through the Christmas holiday. And so that was my Christmas that year. Fast forward, I don't know, 15 years, I'm sitting on a yacht. I have a professional chef preparing me a meal. We're in this beautiful Staniel Cay Island out in the Bahamas. Everything is just beautiful. I'm on this $2 million yacht that I paid for out of my own hard work, my blood, sweat, and tears. The radical change was paramount. It was just immense. I come home, I go to my condo, again, nice condo, right? $3 million condo that I earned. But I sit down, and all I did that night was think about all the mistakes I had made in my life, about my divorce, about how I didn't handle that thing with my son the way I knew I could have handled it, how I didn't call my mother today, how when I was 22, I got into an argument with my dad and I never should have, just it's all of these things, right? And so I would turn to things like alcohol, partying, even vacationing, tons of weed, all that, just to suppress that feeling because there was nothing I could do. And here's the real root of the problem that I discovered for me. And I'm no psychologist, but here's what I really discovered was we paint a picture in our minds of who we are. You know how you see yourself a certain way and then you get shocked when someone describes you in a different way? And you're like, well, that's not the way I see myself. That's not me. But you slowly start to realize, oh no, that is me because Johnny said it, Mary said it, Susie said it, Tom said it. And you're like, oh, that's how I really am. And then you start to see it and you're like, wait a minute, but that's not how I want to be. That's not how I view myself. That's not the picture I painted in my head. And see, what that's called is not being in alignment with your own values. See, I grew up family. I grew up, my grandfather was a Tennessee man, okay? Very gentleman, total gentleman, no matter how much your your wife or your girlfriend freaks out on you and spazzes out and goes nuts, you always are kind to her. You always are polite. Doesn't matter what it is, right? And like literally, he was the perfect epitome of a Southern gentleman. And my grandmother, God rest her soul, and God rest his soul, sometimes she would have her moments, and he always was a gentleman. And this was the values that were instilled in me. These were the way I wanted to see myself, relationship, family, etc. Well, after my divorce, which I never thought would happen, I'm out there running around with a different girl every weekend sometimes, doing these extravagant things. All my friends, they all had different girls every weekend. They're all drinking alcohol. Everybody's drinking alcohol. Everybody's partying. Everybody's just dopamine, 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 dopamine. And I don't want to speak for my friends, but if I had to guess, gun to my head, I would say that they were going through some stuff too. And here's the real key when you become successful, or not even successful. It's access, right? It's access. If you have a bunch of friends around you who are like, hey man, here's this thing, it's easy, take it. It's a completely different situation than when you don't have access to that. Now, you don't have to be rich for this to happen. You know, a lot of people say, well, he's rich, so he has access to drugs and girls and all this stuff. Yes, that's absolutely true. And look, if you're not in that position, you can't possibly know what that's like, to literally have the whole world just open up to you. Anything you want, anytime, here you go, here you go, here you go. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to come into this club that has a 3-week waiting list? You're so-and-so? You know, come on in, okay? It does happen, but you could be dirt friggin' poor, and you could just have a friend who's a drug dealer who's not good with, he just gives stuff away, and bam, same thing, access. The point is that when you are tested, and we are tested every single day, the more access you have, the harder the test is. And some people, all people, I believe, at some point will break. And so I see these people online, and they're very judgmental, and even with Matthew Perry, they're like, he shouldn't have been drinking alcohol. It's like, dude, do you have any idea what it's like to have the entire world know who you are? You have all this stuff going on. You make money, and then the lawyer's like, listen, if we don't do this thing, you're going to lose the money because this person's going to come after it. And then, look, I'll tell you this, guys, for those of you who aren't rich, when you get rich, it is more stressful than being poor, because I have been rich and I have been poor. And while I prefer rich, it is way more stressful, because as soon as you make the money, you need a friggin' staff to protect that money, because everybody's coming after it. Everybody wants a piece. The government wants a piece. Your friends want a piece. Like, I've literally had vendors throw me these bills for $20,000, $30,000 out of nowhere. Oh, we forgot to charge you for this, right? It just boom, and then you have to deal with this stuff. And so the point here is that people do lack a lot of understanding around what it's like to have that much pressure, that much on your shoulders, combined with that much access. If you truly believe that you would not break and go against your values because of the immense pressure and access combined, well, then you must be a prophet or something, because it is very, very difficult. And for me, when that happened, I started to break my values. I started to break against what I viewed myself as. I'd never viewed myself as the guy that would be on a yacht with 8 girls all scantily clad, that I didn't intend to marry any of them. I didn't view myself as someone who'd be staying up till 4 a.m. partying and smoking weed and drinking and doing all this crazy stuff, when I should have been getting up in the morning and getting for a run, getting to the gym. I never envisioned myself to be a type of person who would yell at my employees for something that I knew damn well that I didn't give them enough information on, that I did not give them enough clarity on. And so as these patterns continued, they were completely opposite of how I saw myself. And you know how when you get that stark reality that you are not the person you thought you were, that, in my opinion, is where the depression begins to just take you over. And the more you don't do anything about it, the more you don't take action, the more you continue to live that pattern that is not in alignment with who you are, the worse the depression gets, the harder it is to take action, and the more you hate yourself. And the more you seek ways to forget about how you hate yourself. Alcohol, partying, drugs. For some, it's women. Gambling. It could be eating for some people. And then the whole world looks at you and goes, "Oh, you're a terrible person. You have no self-control." Meanwhile, they got their own crap going on in their life that they don't want to admit because that's out of alignment with how they see themselves. And it's just feeding this. Or, God forbid, you're successful in any way. Now, it's even worse because now they're looking at you saying, "Oh, he's got so much. She's got so much. And you're a bad person." Blah, 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 right? And the truth is, I'm going to tell you this right now. Don't listen to any of those schmucks, because that's what they are. They're schmucks. Because they are fundamentally denying the fact that they are human and that you are human. Okay? Here's the deal. You want to get yourself out of a depression? I don't know if this will work for you, but this is what worked for me. Take a piece of paper, whip it out. On the left, write down how you see yourself or how you would like to see yourself. Write down the qualities that if you were this person, you would feel better because you know that that is who you truly want to be. And then on the right, be 100% honest with yourself. And if you have to, ask some friends to be friends that, the real friends, the friends that'll tell you when you're messing up, how you really are. And tell them it's important to you to be honest, because you're not helping you if you're not honest. And on the right, write down how you are, or just be friggin' honest with yourself. And then, don't look at that page and get overwhelmed. Don't look at that page and say, "Oh, I'm so far off. Oh, it's drinking," right? Don't do that. Look at it and just pick the smallest thing on that list, and work on changing that. Don't work on changing anything else. Just that. And then move to the next. And then move to the next. And work your way up the list slowly. If you try to take on too much at one time, you'll fall right back down to the bottom and you'll just remain there forever. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. And I promise you that things will start to get better. At least they did for me. And eventually I was able to work my way up enough of the list that my ex-wife noticed, and we got remarried, and I had my family back. I went from not seeing my son every day. I went from staring at several big fat pairs of silicone and just looking at them through them thinking, "I wish my son was here." Like, how messed up is that, right? Like, at first, the alcohol and the women and the partying, it suppresses you. But then eventually you become so numb and you get so used to it that you see right through all that dopamine, right through all that experience into the void of what you know to be true. And that is how out of alignment you are with yourself, how you don't have what you want. And that's when you're really when that stuff stops working, it's bad. And all I could see was my son. Booties everywhere, alcohol flowing. And all I could see was my son and my wife. And that's when I knew, all right, man, you're either going to go down a really truly dark path, or you got to fix this. And I did. And unfortunately, and by the grace of God, I was able to get my family back and my wife back. And my son's out there right now, probably arguing with my wife on what to eat for breakfast. Get this piece of paper, write it down, do this. If you've done nothing else, do this. And one more thing, don't listen to these judgmental people who are going to sit there and tell you because you made a mistake, because you made one mistake, because you didn't have self-control, you're this horrible person. Maybe you didn't have self-control. Maybe you did make a mistake. I guarantee you those people, all they're doing is making themselves feel better because they made a mistake. They're not admitting it. And they're suppressing it because they get dopamine, a hit of dopamine out of judging you. Don't be that person. Be the person that works every day to be back in alignment with how you see yourself. I hope this helps. I'll see you in the next one.